Everything happens in Tartaria, and it is already happening when I arrive at the story. It is not the beginning. It is the moment when the damage has already become routine. The records I read today make it clear. A sequence of serious accidents has just occurred in different operation centers spread across Tartarian territory. It was not an isolated case. There were several. In a short time. The giant gears are still there, spinning or newly stopped, occupying enormous halls of stone and iron. They did not break. They did not explode. The problem was never the machine. The problem was the controllers, the giants. Men too big, too strong, who for years were the central piece of this system. Now they appear in reports as cold numbers. One crushed, another thrown against the axle, two unable to return to their post, one dead during load control. There is no drama in the documents, only urgency. Each accident is followed by quick decisions, area isolation, partial shutdown, then total. In Tartaria, the entire system of giant gears is shut down almost at once, as if everyone had already been waiting for this moment. There is no real attempt to fix it. There is no search for adaptation. The order is clear. Stop everything. What is most unsettling is what comes right after. While the giants are still being removed, while the halls still smell of oil and blood, a new solution appears on paper. Another technology. Smaller, closed, remotely controlled. It does not depend on living force. It does not depend on giants. It is presented as safer, more predictable, easier to manage. The switch is immediate. In Tartaria, what sustained entire cities for decades becomes obsolete in a matter of days. The giant gears are sealed, not destroyed. They remain stopped, intact, as if they were still dangerous even when shut down. The giants disappear from the records along with them. And I am stuck at this point in the story, because something does not add up. If the system worked, if the machine could still endure, if the force still existed, why did Tartaria abandon everything so quickly? What really happened there for such great power to be shut down without hesitation? Before everything turned into accidents, Tartaria functioned at a pace that seemed normal to those inside it. That is what I realize reading the old records now, from the present. The documents do not show chaos at the beginning. They show routine, filled shifts, constant production, gears spinning as they always had, and giants doing what they had always done. The wear appears discreetly, small warnings that no one treated as a real threat. One report mentions a giant who had to leave before the end of the shift. Another mentions injured hands, locked backs, slower response time. None of this raises alarm. In Tartaria, there was a silent confidence that the giants could handle it. They always had, so they would continue to. Normal operation depended entirely on them, not as support, but as direct control. They were the ones who felt the weight, who held the rhythm, who adjusted the rotation when the load rose too much. The gears were large, but obedient. What made the difference were the giant bodies pushing, holding, correcting. And this was treated as something guaranteed. The problem is that the risks begin to grow and no one changes the plan. The records show requests for breaks being postponed, overload warnings being noted and archived, always with the same justification. It is still within acceptable limits. In Tartaria, acceptable meant that the system had not stopped, yet. I feel discomfort reading this now because the pattern is clearly visible. The more the giants showed signs of limits, the more the administration tightened control, adjusted shifts, swapped operators, but never questioned the gear itself, never questioned the model. The idea that it could be dangerous seemed unthinkable because admitting that meant admitting too much dependence on living force. The internal motive appears without being stated. Fear of losing what sustained everything, fear of stopping entire cities, fear of admitting that Tartaria had built a system too powerful for those who operated it. It was easier to pretend the problem lay with individuals than with the design as a whole. In some papers, something new appears, almost timid. Short phrases speaking of the need for an alternative, of a more stable method, more predictable, not tied to direct effort. These mentions do not gain prominence. They stay there, like a distant idea, while the old system continues running. And the heaviest realization is that even when the risk was already visible, the choice was to continue. Keep the giants at their posts, keep the gears active, push a little more. In Tartaria, the error is not born of ignorance. It is born of the conscious decision to move forward, even knowing that something was about to slip out of control. Pressure in Tartaria begins to come from all sides at once. It is no longer confined to the gear halls. It reaches offices, councils, central reports. The accidents can no longer be treated as exceptions because they are happening in different places, with different teams, but always in the same way. Gears out of control for seconds, too much force accumulated, a small error that becomes something big far too fast. The giants feel it first. The work climate changes. Where there was coordination before, there is now tension. They're watched all the time. Every movement noted, every failure recorded. In Tartaria, the discourse begins to change without anyone officially announcing it. No one speaks of strength anymore, but of risk. No one speaks of trust anymore, but of limits. The administration reacts the way it knows how, creates new rules, reduces breaks, increases pressure, replaces experienced giants with younger ones, thinking the problem is individual wear, not the system as a whole. But this only makes everything worse. Those who come in do not know the real rhythm of the gear. Those who leave know it will not end well. The reports grow harsher. When something goes wrong, the blame falls directly on the controller. Lack of attention, calculation error, excessive confidence. The obvious question never appears. Why does a machine need to push someone to the limit to function? In Tartaria, admitting that would be admitting that the entire model is too dangerous. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, something else grows. Parallel documents begin to circulate among a few names. Small tests, carried out far from the large gears. A new system, closed, that does not require direct living force. It does not need giants pushing, holding, feeling the weight. Only smaller levers, indirect controls, colder adjustments. Everything presented as safer. The giants notice the change before any announcement. The look changes. The way of speaking changes. They know they are ceasing to be essential and becoming a statistical problem. Some try to adapt to the new rules. Others continue the old way, trusting their bodies and experience. But the system is no longer on their side. Tartaria created something too powerful and sustained that power on giant bodies for too long. When the risk became too high to manage, the solution was not to adjust the old model, but to eliminate it entirely. Not because it did not work, but because it worked at the expense of those who operated it. The practical decision was simple and cold. Systems that depend on living force are too dangerous. Better something smaller, weaker perhaps, but totally controllable. The giant gears became a symbol of an uncomfortable past, a reminder that there was a time when power depended on real giants. Today, what remains are halted structures and poorly explained records. I do not see a happy ending in this. I see direction. I see Tartaria choosing stability over greatness, safety over brute force, and I also see the price of that choice. The story does not end with redemption, it ends with silence. The gears are still there. The giants are not. The system moves forward, cleaner, more predictable. And I close the research knowing that the collapse was not an isolated error, but a cycle forcibly ended. Not to save the machine, but to save those who came to control it.